the bishops, in their zealotry for secularism, are going to run headfirst into not only a culture of death, which we're already in, but a culture of further dehumanization. We have science fiction news out of China. And I say science fiction because this is stuff that would have only been seen in a science fiction film of some kind. Anything that would have had a dystopian undertone to it. We are entering into full-on into the realm of Gattaca or cyberpunk or these other science fiction kind of genres whose underlying message is dehumanization, replacing man with the artificial, turning man into a commodity. And if there were things that the post-conciliar popes and high-profile bishops who were reasonably orthodox appearing were generally good at, was combating this. And the bishops really need to focus, because this is, I'm about to show you a technology that is coming to America without question. This will come here unless we get our lawmakers to step in and say no. Go to Daily Mail with this headline. Would you use a robot surrogate? China develops the world's first pregnancy humanoid capable of giving birth to a live baby. If you don't know what that means, picture a robot that you could have carry a child to term. A robot, not a human being, a robot. This will become the plaything of the rich and upper middle class, and eventually probably available to anybody with a reasonably decent insurance program. This technology will be approved by the FDA at some point. We live in a corrupt enough culture that will happen, especially when even better politicians are recognizing that there is a problem with not having enough kids in this country. And so they start, President Trump with IVF, for example. Now he backed off of that, as I reported, and thanks be to God on that. But he campaigned for IVF, saying we want more babies. Well, how about a baby factory? I mean, that's what we're talking about here. A baby factory, right? Something right out of some dystopian science fiction. It should shock nobody that this story is coming from China, where they have commodified their population. It goes back all the way to Mao. They commodified their population, seeing them as instruments for the greater good, as directed by dear leader and the party. In America and in the West, if we instrumentalize each other for personal aggrandizement, for profit, for anything you can think of that isn't recognizing the inherent dignity and worth of a human being as someone made in the image and likeness of God, deserving the full message of the gospel and all the rest of it, regardless of any other characteristic that we may find personally off-putting, that people bear dignity as a byproduct of being made in the image and likeness of God, and God desiring them to come to know, love, and serve him in this world so they can be with him forever in the next. And until we recognize that we live in an age where human dignity has been tossed out the window completely, we can't effectively stop things like this from happening. So here we go. I'm not surprised it's the Daily Mail, because they're kind of a weird mainstream news outlet. But this is something that came across my desk in the last couple of days. Quote, it's a concept that currently only exists in sci-fi movies, but scientists in China are developing the world's first pregnancy robot capable of carrying a baby to term and giving birth. The humanoid will be equipped with an artificial womb that receives nutrients through a hose, experts say. A prototype is expected to be released next year in 2026 with a selling price of around 100,000 yuan, or 10,000 pounds, meaning about 12,000, 13,000 US dollars. This is within the price range of normal people at that price. The doctor who founded the company Kaiwa Technology is developing the machine. The device he envisions is not simply an incubator, but a humanoid that can replicate the entire process from conception to delivery, Asia media outlets report. He said the artificial womb technology is already in a mature stage and now needs to be implanted in the robot's abdomen so that a real person and the robot can interact to achieve pregnancy. I'm going to read that again. He said the artificial womb technology is already in the mature stage and now needs to be implanted in the robot's abdomen, quote, so that a real person in the robot can interact to achieve pregnancy. Now, when I think of interacting to achieve pregnancy, we are generally thinking about activities suited to the married state. Marriage's principal purpose is for the begetting and fostering of children. Take all the time you need to wrap your head around the concept of a doctor, of a scientist thinking this was a good idea, that this could not possibly have unimaginable consequences for people. And this will be approved in the United States without question. Raven Ray, and interact as in physical contact. Yeah, that's what I took that to mean. I don't know how else you could think that. I'd assumed that this at first, that this was talking about how things are done artificially already, which involve, in a laboratory setting, the engaging in the private sin, as Pius XII called it, and giving the sample, we'll say, to the scientific staff, who then go and artificially, in an abominable kind of way, bring life into the world. Bad enough. This, to me, is even worse, because this is just nothing more than an actual parody of humanity at this point. Now, Von Nobody says this will not work. Women created to be pregnant can't do it because walk on the wrong foot. Well, all I know is, because we have imbibed of hedonism, we are all the products of the revolutionary 1960s, even if we were born afterwards. We are all the products of that. Our thinking is framed in that way, either in a full embrace of it or in a reactionary kind of way, or we had embraced it and then we abandoned it. Whatever it is, we all live in the aftermath of that revolutionary period. And this is now the application of advanced technologies to that culture that was born from that period. With regards to ethical and legal issues, the scientist said, we have held discussion forums with authorities in a local province, submitted related proposals while discussing policy and legislation. So yes, to handle the ethics of this, they handed this to the party in charge of China. Because, there are no greater moral authorities in the world than that. Experts have not yet provided any specifics on how the egg and sperm are fertilized and implanted in the artificial womb. The doctor's revelations were made during an interview on that country's version of TikTok. News and the development sparked intense discussions across their local social media, with critics condemning the technology as ethically problematic and unnatural. Many argue that depriving the baby of an eternal connection was cruel, while questions were raised about how eggs would be sourced for the process. However, many showed support for the innovation, viewing it as a means to spare women from pregnancy-related suffering. One wrote, many families pay significant expenses for artificial insemination only to fail, so the development of the pregnancy robot contributes to society. End quote. How many great evils have we allowed as a people in the name of sparing ourselves from suffering? How many? Whether it's a mild suffering, say a man who is in the grips of the private sin, as Pius XII called it, trying to break that habit, and suffering comes with that. And so they give up. And then you get authorities in the church saying, well, it's a habit, so it's not that bad. Just say an act of contrition. We've all heard those stories, all of us. I get emails from young men periodically wondering how they can keep going how they can get to a traditional parish when the nearest one's 200 miles away because every priest in the confessional tells them that garbage. All in the name of sparing you suffering. How many evils in the broader world can you think of because we want to spare people suffering instead of giving them the Catholic answer, which is that the only true alleviation for suffering comes from Christ, and that he commands us to embrace our cross, to pick it up and carry it and follow him, that we can use the suffering in this life for the salvation of others. Unfortunately, this technology is being developed in a country where they don't have any of these concerns. where they are just materialists looking for material solutions to material problems, or material problems as they see them. Because, of course, the problem in all of the advanced countries of not having kids is not a material problem. It's a spiritual problem with material consequences. We have turned our backs on God. We have embraced pleasure at the expense of stability, morality, everything. And the consequences of this, of course, are the crash in the number of babies being born, continually going down. Seemingly, no matter what policy proposal politicians come up with. In Eastern Europe, they came up with some fantastic pronatal policies. Didn't matter. It bumped up the birth rate a little bit, but not enough to be sustainable. Because the problem is spiritual. And therein lies the problem with the country that they are developing this technology in. And the countries they're going to export it to, because let's not kid ourselves here. Sure, the U.S. is a better place spiritually than that country is. That ain't saying much. You have the right to worship if you want. Well, the cultural propaganda systems hammer home the idea that belief is at best a lukewarm thing. God loves you no matter what. It doesn't matter. He'll be fine. He'll accompany you in a synodal dialogue session, even if you are a wretched, unrepentant sinner. Now here, have communion. Now you might be thinking I just said secular, but I gave you a Catholic Church problem there. But where do you think it comes from? The spiritual leaders of our time have all imbibed the errors of the secular world. Hence, the crisis in the church is directly related to this problem coming out of that country. Now, I'm curious what you think about all this. So let me know in the comments. Are you surprised this is coming out of that country? I'm not. Do you see how this is related to everything else going on? I would hope that with the Pope allegedly coming up with a encyclical soon on AI, that he will address this as part of the larger technology problem. Because artificial intelligence isn't a problem per se, because it's not actually like what science fiction films depict it to be. They're just language learning models. They're complex data gathering systems. It's all they are. The AI that we think of from science fiction films is at best a century away, at best. We're not there yet, anywhere near there yet. And most of the techno overlords who want to push AI fully admit that we are not we're not anywhere near a Skynet or a HAL or any of these other famous science fiction AI systems. But you can see where the moral problems come in with AI. And this is part and parcel of the same problem. We have replaced our morality and our moral framework for taking care of problems in the culture with instruments that actually just exacerbate things, make them worse. That's all we've done. Now, let me know what you think of all this in the comments, please. Like and subscribe if you haven't. It does help. Sharing this on social media helps enormously. And pray for everybody we spoke about today. And as always, pray for the church. I'm Anthony Stine. Ave Maria.